Hi, in this video I will show you how to open an activity. Now to open an activity, first we have to create a second activity. So how do you create an activity? You go here in your Java package, then to the package where you want to create your activity, right click here, new activity, then select empty activity. And then in this dialog, select the name for your activity. I will name it second activity. And then you can select the layout name as well. And this is the convention that we follow in Android, that all the layout names for activity are named as activity underscore whatever is the name of the activity. And for the Kotlin files, it's the opposite way. So it ends with the activity keyword. It just helps the developer to understand what kind of class this is and what kind of layout this is. So once we have selected the name, click finish. And here Android Studio has created second activity for us. So what did it create? It has created a Kotlin file, a layout file, and then if you remember from the first lecture that I said that Android manifest file contains information about all the activities. So when we create the activity through this utility in Android Studio, it creates the tag for the activity as well. And here it just says that XML tag has empty body, so we can just type it here for the warning to go away. So this is a very handy utility that it creates everything in one go. You can obviously create the Kotlin file separately and then the layout file separately and then the tag separately, but obviously it's more time consuming and it's a bit error prone as well, because a lot of times developers forget to add the tag for the activity here as well, and then your application crashes. So it's a pretty neat tool. Now in the second activity, we can go and just add something here. So let's say I add a text view here. And for now, I will just constrain it to be in the middle. You don't need to understand what this means. I will explain constraint layout in a future lecture. Go to the code and we will change this text to say second activity. Okay. Back in our main activity, we can go to the layout, and if it's not here, you can go to your resources folder over here, layout, and then activity main. So here we have the text view. Let's first convert this text view to a button. So if you type button, it will give you the suggestion. Press enter, and then we can change the text on the button as well to say press me, and then you can go to the design and see that it says press me. This is how it will look. And one last thing that I forgot is that we need to add an ID over here. So if you type ID, it will give you the suggestion Android ID, press enter, and then it says that you have to add this at plus ID, press enter, and then you can give this button a name. ID is like a reference to this button that you will use in the Kotlin file for this layout as well. So I will call it open activity button. And then I will just copy it, go to our activity file. If you paste it here, and right now it gives an error, but if you move your cursor over it, press Alt Enter, then it will automatically import the Kotlin syntactic import for us. Now the Android developers who are used to programming in Java, they may remember that we used to import the layout views by using something like find view by ID. Now in Kotlin, there's a pretty neat utility that you can use Kotlin syntactic imports to avoid that boilerplate code. So we can just use the ID straight away. Now, if for some reason you don't see these syntactic imports, you go to the Gradle scripts and go to the Gradle file for your app module. And then make sure that at the top, this Kotlin Android extensions plugin is added. because if it's not added, then this syntactic import here will not work. So make sure this is added if it's not working for you. So here, once this is added, we can say dot set onClick listener. Now here in the onClick listener, this onClick listener basically says that whatever is inside this block will get called whenever this button will be pressed. And inside here, we want to open this second activity. And in order to do that, we will have to create an object of something called intent. Now, intent is a concept in Android that we use pretty extensively, and I will explain it in more detail later on as well. But in order to explain it to you briefly right now, we use intent to show the Android system our intentions, what we intend to do. So in this case, we intend to open second activity. So we are showing our intent to the Android system by creating an intent object. So we create this intent, and this intent basically takes two parameters. First parameter is the context. Now context is another very important concept in Android development. You will see context quite a lot around. And context basically is the current state of the application or the object, or in this case, this activity. Because when you're creating something new, that new object, in this case, the second activity, needs to know the current state or the current context of the application. And in Android, we have context class that's representing that context. Now, all these activities and fragments are basically subclasses of context. So we can use the activity as a context here as well. And in order to use this activity, we can just say this here, and this is this main activity over here, comma, and then the second parameter is the class. So basically the class name that we want to open second activity, and then colon class.java. So now we have created an intent to open the second activity, and we can save it in a variable. So let's say val intent is equal to intent. So we have initialized an intent and we have assigned it to a variable, and val is just a constant variable in Kotlin. And then we can call a function called start activity and pass this intent in there. So the start activity is basically a function in that comes from the activity. And this is all we need to launch the second activity. Now, if we launch our application, here, press this button, and there you can see that we have landed in the second activity. Now, if we press back, we go back to the first activity, and this is another important thing that we need to understand as a beginner in Android development, is that whenever we open a new activity, that new activity gets open on top of the previous activity. So all the activities are kept in a stack. So if from here you open a third activity, that third activity will open on top of this activity. And if you go back, you will go back to the previous activity you're coming from. So in this case, we came here from our main activity that had the button. So if you press back, you will land here. Now, before finishing, I would like to show you one other thing as well. So if you go here, sometimes you may have noticed that there's a back button over here as well. It's not really a back button, it's called up button. So you go up in the application hierarchy, but you don't, at this point, you don't really need to understand what's the difference between up and back. But if you want to provide that kind of button, as right now you can see it's not there, and you can only go back by pressing the back button. So if you want to provide that, it's pretty easy to do. For that, you go to your manifest file. You go to the activity tag where you want to provide the up button. Press enter here. And then you basically have to define the parent activity name. which in this case will be main activity, because from second activity we want to go to our main activity. So here the Android Studio is just giving us suggestions. So if you press this, so we have defined this main activity. Now if you run it again, you can see that we have this back arrow over here, and if you press this, we go back to the main activity. And if you press back, then the application gets exited. So that was that for this lecture. If you liked the video, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.